Most of my subscribers know I love making videos about moral issues and morality itself. A lot of you may remember I've talked extensively about something that I was a fence sitter on, gun control, where I'm generally pro-gun, but at the same time I think an ideal society does not have guns, and I think a lot of pro-gun arguments are laughable, but I think almost all anti-gun arguments are either unproductive or just ludicrous. So I won't go at length into those since I already have before. I thought I'd bring up a new issue that I really struggle with, and I think it's really fascinating when you have a moral issue that you can't make up your mind about, because I don't think that necessarily shows weakness or frivolity or not having a strong conception of the issue every time. I think sometimes it's a sign of nuance. So I thought I'd lay out my thoughts on abortion for you and have you guys tell me what you think. You know, whether I'm unnuanced, just immoral and wrong, or waffling too much, or just unable to make up my mind, or what do you guys think? So, when it comes to abortion, I am technically pro-choice, and I mean that just very technically. I think ultimately it is a woman's right to choose, and that I don't have any right to tell a person what they have to do with their own body. I believe absolutely in bodily autonomy and the choices that individuals make. However, that does not mean that I am morally satisfied with that at all. If I were a woman and I got pregnant, abortion would be out of the question to me, unless it was, to terminate the pregnancy in order to save my own life. Otherwise, it's not a choice I think I could ever make. And if I were to have gotten a woman pregnant with an unwanted child, I would never ask her to have an abortion, and I would be uncomfortable with the decision, even though I would never think it was mine to make. I would never be on that side of the decision making. Now, this one's really interesting because a lot of times the argument is framed in a religious sense, and being an atheist, I get to be well outside of that. I also don't think that the Bible has a strong textual case against abortion when God basically performs them in the Bible, in the Old Testament anyway. Now, and also infanticide is really common in the Bible, so it's really strange. I think that's mostly a cultural thing that has arisen in modern Christianity, rather than something that is actually framed within doctrine there. But my conception of what is harm and what is suffering is directly tied to the ability of a creature to suffer. And the best analogy I have for this is the sort of same ideas I have about veganism or vegetarianism. I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not a vegan, and I'm not morally compelled by vegan arguments because of the kind of nuance I have. I do not think that a cow has the same capacity for suffering that an animal that has co-evolved with humankind and is semi-sapient has. Like, I do not believe a cow can suffer like a dog can. I do not believe a cow can even suffer like a cat can. I don't even think a cow can suffer like any bird can that's normally a pet bird, like a parrot or a tortoise even. And definitely not anything like a dolphin or an elephant. So therefore, I don't find those kinds of arguments compelling, especially when it comes to prey species. The closest you could really get to me feeling kind of butthurt about the suffering of an animal that I eat, shamelessly, would probably be that I think that a lot of pigs are a little too intelligent and a little bit too high capacity for emotional expression to really be morally comfortable eating them. However, I am still comfortable eating them. I just it's an uncomfortable thought that I have to admit that I'm not consistent on. It's just that's like sort of the cutoff boundary is pigs. Cows, I don't feel sorry for eating them at all. Chickens, don't feel sorry for eating them at all. Eggs, fish, none of that. I'd eat the fuck out of that stuff till the day I die shamelessly with a smile on my face. Those animals do not suffer like dogs, cats, and peoples can. So if you compare that to abortion, I don't think a first trimester fetus has the capacity to suffer, neither emotionally or physically, due to a very undeveloped nervous system. Therefore, it doesn't bother me, really, morally, when a first trimester fetus is aborted. The more developed that fetus gets, the more morally troubled I am. And by the third trimester, if you have to cut that baby out and that baby's got a pretty strong chance of survival, then, and of course that the baby does have lungs, heart, brain, eyes, hands, and a developed nervous system at that point, then I'm morally troubled, big time. And I'm not okay with it at all. And in fact, I don't even think it should be legal to terminate a pregnancy after, I think, about 36, 40 weeks. I'm not okay with that at all. Again, barring the protect the life of the mother argument. However, I'm somebody who thinks that you don't have the right to touch somebody who doesn't want to be touched. You can't fuck somebody who doesn't want to be fucked. And I don't think you can really say that it's moral to force a woman to carry a child that she doesn't want to either. There's not a 100% moral either way, going either way. And you better believe that forcing a woman to carry pregnancy she doesn't want to is definitely forcing a woman to suffer. And there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So that's a real moral quandary where you have a not just emotional and somebody who can emotionally and physically suffer because of a pregnancy, but somebody who's 100% sapient and can be, morally, mentally tortured by the experience too. So I don't think it's that cut and dry at all. At all. It's really a hard choice. Now, I don't always sort of have a very consistent sense of the sanctity of people, because I don't believe sanctity is a thing. And usually, my ability to show moral compassion to a stranger, or even to somebody who I find detestable, is only tied to my ability to put myself in their shoes and to think about how I would feel if somebody persecuted or harmed me if I was them. So this is the sort of way that, me being a free speech absolutist, I advocate for the free speech of people who I find morally evil, not just unlikable, detestable, or cringy, or whatever, but evil. People I think who are a direct threat and harm to the fabric of society. People like radical feminists, authoritarian progressives, Nazis, communists, anarchist separatists, those kind of people. I think a lot of those people are downright evil, and I think almost all of those people are fucking stupid. Do I think that it's okay to physically attack those people? Absolutely not. Do I think it's okay to imprison those people for their political beliefs? Absolutely not. Do I think it's okay to suppress or limit the expression or free speech of any of these people? Left, right, Nazi, authoritarian, libertarian, anarchist, feminist, any of these people who I find thoroughly detestable and loathsome? Do I think it's okay to persecute, harm, suppress them in any way, shape, or form? No. I think that behavior is fundamentally evil, and I will not participate in it or accept it from other people, even though it's only to the detriment of people I fucking hate. That's what's called being morally consistent. So that's why I find issues like abortion fascinating, because I don't know how to be morally consistent on abortion. I don't think there's such a thing as the sanctity of life, and I'm not compelled by the potentialistic arguments about life. I'm compelled by the ability of a creature to suffer. And I fully believe that a pregnant woman is ability to suffer is in no way comparable to the ability of an undeveloped first trimester fetus to suffer at all. And that's when it becomes much more clear to me. And then as that goes on, it changes. And when people like Ben Shapiro say, well, where's the cutoff point? My answer is, I don't know. And I'm not so sure that the lack of a distinct objective cutoff point means that it's immoral all of the time. I'm not compelled by that argument. And I also think that people like Ben Shapiro have a moral obligation, if they're a moral absolutist about such claims, to never be okay with a brain-dead vegetable being taken off life support. Because you never know, there's a potential that down the line their medical advancements could cure their position. Therefore, you should be obligated to keep their heart beating artificially and to keep them intubated so they breathe artificially, if you think the same way. But if you're like me and think that a brain-dead person is not only a lost cause but has lost the ability to suffer, then perhaps the moral thing to do is actually to kill them. And I do think that medically assisted euthanasia is another thing where I worry about a person's cognitive ability to make such a profound decision, especially when I don't believe that there's an afterlife and that once you die you are done for good. I still am on the side of assisted euthanasia, or the same way that I think an adult has the right to refuse vaccination, even though I think that's insane. I think an adult has a right to refuse life-saving medical procedures like cancer treatments that they are refused for ridiculous religious or spiritual or strange conspiracy theorist or alternative medicine beliefs, even though I think those people are insane and wrong and are doing that to their own detriment or even their own, death. I think those people have the right to do that because I am pretty morally absolutist when it comes to bodily autonomy, even to the person's own detriment. The only time that I'm against that is when it comes to issues of consent, usually when it comes to a child. I think, say, for instance, if you have gender dysphoria or if you're one of these fake transgender people who believes in all this weird genderqueer made-up bullshit, I think as an adult you have a right to participate in that in any way you choose. I do not believe that you have the right to give hormones to a child, whether they are pubescent or not, and I think you should go to jail forever if you try to give hormone therapy to a prepubescent child. I believe that is inarguably evil because that child doesn't even have the ability to conceive of their final sexuality and whatnot. And even if some people say, oh, I knew I was gay when I was 5, or I knew I was a girl in my heart when I was 5, when they're biologically male, I can believe that person and still say, when you're legally adult, go nuts. Until then, I need you to realize that your ability to be brainwashed, manipulated, or to believe things that you will very soon as you grow older stop believing, that you should be prevented from making permanent choices like hormone therapy, gender reassignment, or things that can permanently affect your reputation or the rest of your life or your relationship with your peers and family. Like I'm not really even okay with the gender. I'm not okay at all with the gender pronoun thing, really, with kids. I mean, they can do that amongst their peers, but I don't think that any of this should be extended to any sort of authority thing like schools or community leaders at all. I don't think schools should participate in that at all. The kid can do that with their peers and with their family. And I think it's actually morally wrong to indulge the child, even though they want to be indulged, rather than it's morally wrong to not indulge the child. I'm more than willing to re-entertain that thought when the child is an adult and has the right of consent and so forth. So that's the way I see this issue. And let me know in your what you think in the comments, because I'm always open to discussing this, particularly because I don't have my mind made up, or I haven't come to the same sort of one of two conclusions that most of society has come to. You know, I'm not pro-choice like a feminist progressive is pro-choice, or it's my body, my rules through the whole time. I'm not morally okay with that, nor am I morally compelled by religious Christian conservative arguments either. So I'm really curious what you guys think, because I meet very few people who think the same way I do on these issues. Thanks for watching.